welcome to my channel. I am Stephanie, and this is going to be the best spooky book I've ever read. So for the last couple months of this year, I have been doing a collab video with some bookish friends, and this month's sort of prompt or best ever was spooky books. We're coming into this season of spookiness and Halloween and creepiness and things like that. So I asked my friends to give me a book. I think I said one book. I'm pretty sure I said one book, but some of them may have given you more. But here are some of my bookish friends' spookiest reads.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I am from the channel The Bookish Knitter, and today I am here to share with you, of course, the spookiest book that I have ever read. So this isn't necessarily a traditional spooky book with ghosts and ghouls and goblins and things that go bump in the night. This is definitely much more of a psychological spooky book, or thriller book I should say, and that is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. I love Lisa Jewell. I've been reading her for about 2 years now, and I've read through the majority of her thriller backlist. I know she's written some other books outside of the thriller genre. Those ones I haven't really delved into yet, but her thrillers are absolutely fantastic. And this book that I'm sharing with you is by far my favorite. I do not want to give away too much in this book because, of course, it is a thriller, and I don't want to have any spoilers for anybody. But suffice it to say, this book is about a 15-year-old girl who, while walking home from school one day, disappears. And it's told in alternating viewpoints, and it's told going back and forth in time. The chapters are short, which is always a bonus. But the thing that made this one spooky for me, or creepy, it was that feeling of the hair standing up on the back of my neck, was the fact that in this book there were so many close incidences that happen. Stuff that if literally someone was seconds away from the entire story changing course and from the ending turning out completely different, if they had turned around or done something differently, the entire course of action could have been altered. And that to me is creepy, and it just kind of goes to show you how quickly something can change in the blink of an eye. And it was so good, and it was also a little heartbreaking, to be completely honest. But if you have not read this one and you're looking to dive into Lisa Jewell, I do highly recommend that you pick this one up. You will not be disappointed.
Hi guys, it's Ashley from Usher Books, and for my spookiest or scariest book I've read, I had to think for a little bit because I am not a huge scary book or movie person. I am a complete and total scaredy cat, and typically if I read something too scary or watch something too scary, I'm that person that has to sleep with the lights on. So I had to do a little thinking, but I have read a couple of kind of like romantic suspense, and I think my favorite, or the one that kind of creeped me out the most, was called Till Death by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So Jennifer Armentrout is one of my favorite authors. So when she came out with this, which is kind of a romantic suspense, I had to pick it up just because I loved her so much. But I didn't really know if it'd be my kind of thing because, as mentioned, I just don't do well with scary. This one was actually really good. This is about a woman who, when she was younger, I believe she was a teenager, she was taken captive by a serial killer, and she managed to escape. After she escaped, she left town. She just couldn't handle being in her hometown anymore, and she really hasn't been home very much since then. It's been 10 years, and so I think she's in her like late 20s now. And she comes home to help run her family business, which is an inn, and her family just really needs her, so she finally comes home, and it's kind of bringing back all these memories and things like that. Obviously, that's very traumatic. So all of a sudden, when she comes home, there are girls going missing again, and the police and the FBI are involved because it looks like it might be the same person that took her, or someone who's copycatting the person who had taken her years ago. So as these girls are being taken, the FBI is involved, and the kind of hero of the story is the lead FBI investigator who is trying to look into this and kind of look at what happened to her and then what happened to the girls that are missing now. It was really, really creepy, like, because obviously you get flashbacks of when she was taken as well, and it's from her perspective. So I was really scared through some of this. And obviously, if you are not somebody who likes something that has to do with the serial killer, this may not be the one for you. I did really enjoy it because it wasn't to the point where I like couldn't read it anymore, because I have left books before because they're too scary. This one wasn't the case for me because I think I liked the fact that they were looking into the investigation and looking for like the clues to find this person and like capture him and, you know, obviously bring him to justice. I really enjoyed it, and it was definitely a scary read.
Hi everyone, this is Nicole from Who Picked This Book, and my best ever spooky book is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz, illustrated by Stephen Gamble. This was a very nostalgia pick for me just because I loved these books as a kid. I was reading them in like grade school and middle school, and they were always checked out of the library, like someone had it, but when it was your turn you just loved it so much, and we all would just go into the playground and we would sit in a circle and we would like read these to each other. And it's very much, especially the first book, it's like it gives you prompts where you can, as you're telling the story, it tells the reader like what to do, like jump to the person on your left or jump and try to scare somebody as you're reading the story. And it's like really interactive, and it's super, super fun. Very appropriate if you want to read books and try to scare your kids during this Halloween season. But these are just a collection of ghost stories or campfire stories or spooky stories that's just been passed down from generation to generation. And even reading these as an adult, some of these are downright scary. It's the illustrations that I love so much. Now, I have the original illustrations in this box set, but they were reprinted with different illustrations, and I just feel like it's not the same. So if you can find these with the original illustrator, that's Stephen Gamble, I urge you to pick them up because these are the better illustrations, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So this is the first book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And you can just see, just from the cover, very chilling, very creepy. It says down here, this chapter is filled with jump stories you can use to make your friends jump with fright. So it's gonna, the book tells the reader when to jump to make other people scared. So I'm just going to go through and show you some of the illustrations just because they are phenomenal. They're just so, like, they're so creepy, right? So yeah, just a collection of little short stories and, you know, folklore. And it says it's for ages 9 and up. So you can definitely get your kids around you during Halloween and try to tell them some spooky stories. So that is my pick for best ever spooky book. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for allowing me to come on and collaborate with you. And I'll see you next time.
Hey everybody, my name is Deja and my channel is Deja's Book World. I want to say thank you to Steph for inviting me to participate in this collab because she knows that spooky everything is my thing. I love horror, I love thrillers, I love anything spooky. Halloween is my season, and on my channel, as I said, I love thrillers and horror, but I also love romance and fantasy, so I'm really getting into all of those genres a lot since some of them I've been reading for a while, but some of them I'm just starting to get into now. So for this month's topic, I decided to go in two different ways because, as I said, I love thrillers and horror, so the spookiest book that I've ever read is not romantic in any way. So I decided to go with a book that I think a lot of romance readers could get into just because it's not scary or anything like that, but it is still creepy and gives you those Halloween vibes if that's what you're looking for, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I love this book so much. It is one of my favorite books of this year so far. I recently just read this because it is Riley Sager's newest release, and I just love this book so much. So we follow Maggie, who lived in a house when she was younger with her parents for about 20 days, and it was claimed to be haunted, so they left in a hurry, and her dad wrote a book about how this house is haunted. Maggie never believed that the house was actually haunted, so we get alternating chapters of her going back to the house after her father has died to try to investigate to figure out if the house is actually haunted or not. And we get chapters of her dad's book recounting the events of what happened when Maggie was younger. I just love this book so much. As I said, it gives you those creepy vibes without scaring you too much. Also, if you don't really like paranormal aspects for things being explained, I would definitely recommend this book, because Riley Sager always has realistic endings to his book and they're not really paranormal. And the second book that I decided to go with has more of a romance in it, but it isn't super spooky, and that is You by Caroline Kepnes. This is a thriller, and this does have a romance in it, but it's like kind of a stalky relationship. This also has an amazing TV show that I highly recommend. We follow Joe Goldberg as he sets his sights on a new woman, and he begins to stalk her and wiggle his way into her life. So there is a relationship eventually between the two of them, and a lot of stuff just goes down in this book. We are in the perspective of Joe, who is a stalker and a killer, so we feel a lot towards him. He's one of my favorite characters of all time, but I just think that this, if you're looking for something to kind of give you a thriller vibe but still have romance in it and isn't scary at all, this is actually quite funny. I would definitely recommend this book. I just want to say thank you again to Steph for having me, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.
Hi everyone, my name is Chloe and my channel name is Always Booked, and today I'm here to tell you about the spookiest book I have ever read. So if you have seen my channel, I don't read a whole lot of like paranormal or like what you would consider spooky, but I do read a fair amount of thrillers. And so when Steph asked for the spookiest book we've ever read, I thought of like the creepiest, most ominous, most like stressful book that I have ever read, and the answer to that is Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. So this book is about a couple, it's a domestic thriller about a couple who seem to have everything together. They seem to be beautiful, successful, have the perfect marriage, and everything just looks perfect. And behind closed doors, things are a little different. So when I was reading this book, I was so stressed out, but in the best way. And just the whole vibe of the book is very like, what's going to happen, what's going on. It's very tense, and I just could not stop turning pages with this book, and I loved it. So I think this would be perfect for a fall read if you're wanting something just kind of spooky, creepy, again, like that kind of ominous vibe, but this is not one that would like keep you awake at night. And so this is my favorite and what instantly came to mind. But the other book that I could suggest is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. This one is a true crime fiction. I think it might be nonfiction, and it's about a killer that came into a home in Holcomb, Kansas, and I live in Kansas, and so it was extra creepy, and he killed them all, and it is so fascinating. Now, the more I'm talking about it, I think it might be nonfiction. But it's just so creepy and scary, and it was like this farmhouse, and it just made me so like, again, stressed and scared. That one genuinely scared me. So those are two books that I would highly recommend for this fall time if you haven't read them, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think and what everybody else says, because I am all ready for the fall vibes. So can't wait to see everybody else's, and thanks for watching.
Hey everyone, my name's Tamika. I'm from the channel Library of Tomes, and when Steph mentioned this collab about doing a spooky book and doing it for Halloween, I immediately was trying to find a spooky romance that I could recommend for you. However, I'm going to be going completely off brand because I in fact do not have a spooky romance book that I can actually recommend you, because a lot of the ones that I have are garbage and I don't want to recommend you the glorified fan fiction that I forced Izzy to read. I'm going to be recommending a horror book, and if you didn't know, I actually really like horror. I typically like horror in movies more than I do books, so I don't read horror as often as I watch horror movies. But I wanted to recommend Joe Hill today, and this is Nosferatu. This is a horror book that is following a character named Vic, and Vic is a very strong-willed character, She originally meets Charlie Manx, who is a man who will kidnap children and take them to Christmas land, and they're never heard from again. She originally runs into him in her childhood years. She's in her, I think her early teens whenever she runs into him. So she escapes. She has this bicycle that kind of transports her through time and through different places. It's very interesting. It's very complex. It's very fun. And we're then following years later when Vic is meeting Charlie Manx again for the next time because her son was actually taken. So we are trying to follow the story to find out if she's gonna get her son back, and I love this book. I think it's so interesting and I do recommend it. I would probably really recommend this more towards the Christmas time. I did read this in December and absolutely loved it. It really does have some Christmassy themes in this just because it is set around a place called Christmas Land, and it is so fun if you read the physical copy or you just like physically read it in general, not necessarily with like the paperback, but if you like physically read it with like an ebook, there's some really beautiful illustrations in it. And at some point in here, I think there was a map that was like inside, like as you were reading it, and there are references to his dad's work. And I will say, I think he's a lot better than his dad, and I would recommend him over King any day. So that is my recommendation. I love Joe Hill, so I hope you pick this up. And if you do, let me know because I love Joe Hill. He's amazing.
Hello friends and enemies, my name's Isabel, or Izzy. I'm from the channel Happy for Now, and I can't wait to share my spookiest book. So I am definitely a romance reader at heart. I do enjoy thrillers here and there, and I've recently dipped my toe into horror, which is a very interesting experience. But basically, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia came out this year, and I listened to this on audio and had a freaking blast. So I didn't think I liked horror, honestly. I thought I was too scared of it and afraid to read it, but Mexican Gothic really set an atmospheric stage for me to enjoy horror. It involves Noemi going to see a family friend who sent a mysterious letter, and it leads down some interesting paths. It's slow, it's windy, it kind of builds on itself. But it was so atmospheric. The 50s vibes in this were amazing. There is not a romance in this though. And then like the last 15% was disgusting. I say that with thrill because I was like kind of prepped for it and ready to dive into the disgustingness and not be too freaked out. But I really can't recommend Mexican Gothic enough if you want to try horror, because I do think it's a good starting point as someone who doesn't read horror liking it. And I just think the setting and atmosphere is like perfection for this time of year. I kind of wish I saved it a little longer instead of reading it this summer so that I could have really like basked in the fall spookiness. But yeah, that's my pick.
Everyone, my name is Jen. I'm from the Book Refuge, and today this prompt that we're talking about was our spookiest book. I don't read a lot of spooky books. I think that is, you know, universally known by the people that know me, is I'm not really into suspense novels. I'm not really into thrillers or spooky books, but I do have a couple that fit into this. But then even less of those that were books that I actually want to recommend. So the actual like spookiest book that I read is this one that I only ended up giving it 2 stars because it was all spook and no substance. But I do have one that I've brought up before. This is a fantasy romance, and it has a witch in it and everything. And I do think it was really creepy for the way people treat people in this book, as well as the actual like villain of it is terrifying. So that book is The Shrike and the Shadows, and this is by Chantal, Gadoury, and A.M. Wright. So this is a self-published book. I actually got to read an arc for this before it came out, and then I wanted to support the authors, and so I purchased a physical copy. This book is a Hansel and Gretel retelling. So we have Hans and Greta, and they are 2 orphans who live together on the edge of town. They are like 20 years old, I think. And I don't think they're twins. I think Hans is older. But they live on the edge of town, and there is this witch that is called she's called the Shrike, and she will come and take men, lure them away with her sexual wiles, and then she rips out their hearts, and she sends the body back then to the village after she rips out their hearts. And there is a rumor in this town that the Shrike is Greta, which, number one, makes no sense because the Shrike has been coming around for much longer than she has existed. But also, because her and her brother live together, her brother has caused these rumors to perpetuate because Hans, he's a bit of a player. And when he loves and leaves the women, he uses the excuse that he can't leave his sister because there'd be no one to take care of her. And so that leads to rumors in the town that there is a incestuous relationship happening between them. This is not a book of incest, all right? I know I've went there before. That's not what this is. But Hans has done a bad job of, stopping the spread of that rumor because he doesn't want to be tied down. And Hans isn't a horrible person. I know I'm painting him that way. It's the women of the village who also choose to, not see through his crap. But the reason this is spooky is that very quickly, they want to find out who the Shrike really is so that Greta stops being blamed for this, as well as Hans ends up being marked by this Shrike. And so he will possibly be the next victim. There is also a priest in town who has his sights set on Greta, and that makes him a bit of a danger to her in a few ways. And so eventually in this book, why it's the creepiest to me is it's hard to tell you all the reasons why it's creepy. There is some body horror in this book, which I don't love, but because, this woman rips out hearts, so you have to be prepared for a little bit of horror to happen, like you just do. But they end up in the woods trying to track down this woman. They get chased out of their village when when men keep dying. They're looking for someone to blame. And the priest, who isn't getting his way with Greta, then is like, well, you know what? I'm going to get you blamed as this person. And he turns the town on her, and her and Hans have to go on the run. So this book was very spooky. I think it really fits in for Halloween time. There is a sequel still supposed to be coming for this, but it does fit as a standalone if that were to never happen. There is a conclusion to some aspects of the story, so I still feel comfortable recommending it to people. Even though I normally would want something to be complete, I feel like this would work. So there you go. This to me is one of the spookiest books that I've written, or not written. I did not write it. Not that talented. One of the spookiest books that I've read that I still want to suggest to people. So have a happy Halloween, everybody.
As with most of these videos, I don't actually watch what my friends say, so I'm sure that they gave you some really spooky and creepy and different books, because I did say, I forgot to tell you guys this in the beginning, but I said, the stipulations for spooky, it didn't have to necessarily be horror, and it didn't necessarily have to be romance. So there was a lot of subgenres that you could have played in. You could have played in Gothic romance, you could have played in romantic suspense, or romantic thriller, or even horror and thrillers and suspense just on their own, no romantic necessary as well. So I'm sure that they gave you some really good variety, and I hope that you will, check out their books. So I actually have 2 books for you. Am I going to do 2? No, I'm only going to give you this one. Although I have an entire bookshelf over on my Goodreads, so if we're not Goodreads friends, make sure you check the description box and become my Goodreads friend so that you can see my shelves, that I have a few books on the creepy, weird, and spooky suspense. I have bookshelves over there that my books are broken down into. But the book that I'm going to talk to you guys about today is The Shadows of Stormclyff Hall by Lauren Smith. This book took me by surprise. Woo! Like, seriously took me by surprise. I was not expecting what I got out of this book. I think I would categorize this book as a a Gothic romance. Oh my goodness. Because even though it is set in modern day and you have a earl that is refurbishing his castle, the castle that he has inherited, and everything like that, you also have a PhD student that is coming to write her thesis on the Stormclyff Hall, and there are things that end up happening. There are a lot of, you know, kind of spooky feels to this. This is like, I think would be a great read to read at this time because, hello, it's Gothic. Yes. And I wasn't really big into it. I wasn't as well versed in Gothic as I thought, and I still probably am not. I'm sure there are plenty of other Gothic romances, but I definitely think this one is a good one to kind of ease your way into it if you don't know if you're gonna like ghosts and creepiness and, you know, a little bit of mystery along with some romance, and there's some steamy times in here as well. And I just really enjoyed this book. So go out and check out The Shadows of Stormclyff Hall by Lauren Smith. Whew. Yes. So I'm sure my friends, like I said, have given you some excellent recommendations as well. All of their information is down in the description box. My information to connect with me is down in the description box. You can also find in the description box a feedback form to help me improve my channel, or if you just want to leave a comment that you don't want to make public, you can use that form as well and leave me a short comment on the form. And if you don't mind leaving your email address, then I can, you know, respond back to you or what have you. Other than that, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Make sure that you go and check out my collaborators. All their links are down there as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.